Bar should have come upon the wolf and the dark-haired boy, heard them up ahead, but she'd seen and heard nothing. And the path was now overgrown. No, it wasn't a path at all. She'd lost them. But things were worse than that. Bar looked around. She was lost too. A cold wind reached deep into the forest, and the wood shook in its frigid grasp. Being lost wasn't her only problem. It was move or freeze to death. So ignoring the cold and the pain in her feet, she carried on. Oddly, her feet didn't hurt as much as they had before. The cold had numbed them. It was blight disguised as blessing. As she limped along, the woods lightened, stars dimmed, and the sky got brighter. Bar couldn't see but sensed the horizon had taken on the rosy hue of early morning. Amy would be up soon. She'd raise an alarm. People would be searching. Trouble is, would they know where to look? Unlikely. No one was going to find her. This Bar knew. But she wasn't exactly alone. An owl announced his presence with a hoot, and then soared low and over her head, guiding her glance where she needed to look. A cross. It had to be the cross of St. Cat's Chapel. A few more yards and she'd be in the school clearing. The trees and the bushes stopped, and Bar did indeed enter her clearing. But St. Cat was nowhere to be found. She stood before a maze, about 10 feet high, and who knew how deep. Sedgwick's Guinevere had lived within a maze in the woods. It had to be the same one. Great. Bar had battled her way through the woods, and now she'd have to figure her way through a maze. But the steeple she'd mistaken for St. Cat still stood. It would offer shelter, perhaps warmth, survival. A little wisp of a cloud floated up and above the cross and disappeared into the twilight. It was soon replaced by another curlicue of gray. The cloud had to be smoke from a fireplace. Perhaps it was only wishful thinking, but it was all she had. Imagined heat unthawed her muscles, and Bar entered the maze. She didn't get far. Just past the entrance, the locket hung from the hedges. There was no wolf and no dark-haired boy. Disturbingly, the locket dripped with blood. Still, there seemed just one thing to do. Bar took hold of the chain. One drop of red landed on her hand. It burnt, and she drew back. The blood bubbled and sizzled with silver and then dissolved to nothing. She held up her hand and flexed it. It seemed okay. She reached out again. The dream let go, and the maze disappeared to mist. Bar wasn't in the forest anymore, but back in her own bed. "Why did you wake me?" she demanded of Amy. "You cried out in your sleep. I thought you were having a nightmare. You don't understand. I almost had it." "Had what?" Bar looked around. No locket. Just a headache. "I had another one of those dreams," she told Amy. Not again. Amy had been thinking it over. The dreams were no doubt brought on by exposure to mold. They were probably spending a little too much time in the stacks. And the diary, well, so what? It's just a book. Anyway, mold poisoning was a lot more likely than spirits, dream visions, and haunted books. Amy strove for her most convincing tone. It was just a dream or a delusion, just like the one yesterday. Either way, let it go. "A delusion?" Bar echoed. "You really believe that, and I'm just imagining things?" Bar threw off the covers, hitting Amy in the face with the blanket. Amy got out of the way before she got hit with something heavier, like Bar's feet as they flew past her face. Bar came to sitting on the edge of the bed, and Amy gasped. Muddy feet were covered in dried blood and scratches. Amy was pretty certain Bar had never left her bed, yet her feet definitely confirmed a rough night. Amy sat back down on the bed. Okay, maybe it wasn't the mold.
The Wisp is published on Amazon.com. Also available on Amazon is Monsters, Real and Imagined, Tragic, Frightening, and Funny, All Too Brief, a collection of short stories and poetry. Strays, a collection of short stories and philosophical love poems, and Tattoo, Calling All Soldiers Home, a collection of poems in brevity.